Hello, I'm Gil Zilkha. Welcome to my channel, Essential Classical Music, where we look at the best recordings of the standard classical music repertoire. This video is taken out of my larger video on the great conductors and their best recordings. I hope you enjoy it. Now, next, I want to talk about another Mahler specialist. This time, a conductor who was originally from Ukraine, Jascha Horenstein. His Mahler, he also was very emotive, but I think in a much more controlled way compared to Barbaroli, much more patient way. That's the key word with Horenstein, I have to say. I think that's something that a lot of his detractors miss. And that's in the patience and the way he slowly builds things and builds the intensity in a way kind of like a pot that has this lid on it and you can see the smoke coming out and you just wait for the right time to bring that lid off. Horenstein built climaxes as strongly or more powerfully than any conductor I've heard, just really incredibly. But then he also had this dedication that came across in every bar. Everything meant something. He was obviously a very soulful person, very dedicated to Mahler. I believe one thing he once said was that his biggest regret on dying is that he won't hear Das Lied von der Erde ever again. So he was a very spiritual person who particularly felt the music of Mahler, and that comes across. This is probably the most famous of his Mahler symphony recordings, partly because it's a studio recording. This is the Symphony No. 3. And again, it's very powerfully and eloquently done, especially that adagio, which builds to that wonderful climax. It's well recorded. It's like from around 1970. It doesn't have the fullness of sound you would prefer. It's a little bit thin in terms of its sound. It's with the London Symphony, so it's well played, just not as the depth of the stereo sound is not quite what you want, but the interpretation is fantastic. However, for Mahler, I have to mention what is not only in my mind the best example of Horenstein on disc, but one of the best Mahler recordings that exist as well. That's this one, the Symphony No. 8, Symphony of 1000. Difficult work to bring off, not just in terms of execution, but it's one that can be difficult for people to stick with as it's going. It's very dense. It's with chorus throughout. You really need to be sold on it. And that's what you get here with Horenstein. This is a recording with the London Symphony and the BBC Symphony Chorus live from Royal Albert Hall in I think it was the late 50s, somewhere like 1958 or so. And there's, of course, that sense of occasion. And again, Horenstein builds it patiently. It doesn't just hit you over the head with that opening Veni Creator Spiritus. You have to be a little bit more patient with it, but then it builds. And then the climaxes that he gets to in the middle, and especially that final chorus Mysticus, the way he just, lets it build and build and build until, it's just few, if any, conductors have ever been able to pull that off. And again, it's that attention to every single measure in the score means something. And for me, that's something that's really important that Horenstein does. He's always telling a story, and he's always connected to the meaning of the music. So a work like the Eighth, which I think is difficult to bring off in terms of its length and density, you really want something like this. The only, of course, downside is it's a live recording from the 50s, so it's not going to give you the full orchestral splendor. But in terms of the interpretation and something to sell you on the work, this is just one of the great symphony recordings in existence. Now, this one is a studio recording that I want to mention next. This one is of Nielsen's Fifth Symphony with I think it's the New Philharmonia. Yeah, and again, it's that Horenstein gift for building intensity. He has that wonderful way with the end of the first movement, with the percussion that kind of goes off on this tangent and battles the orchestra, and then that second movement, a little slower maybe than some other versions, but once again just building that intensity to that, just this wonderful exhale at the end. It's a really, really powerful interpretation. And then finally, a work which is not that lucky on record. There are not that many iconic versions. This is, I believe, another live recording, but it's pretty well recorded. And that's the Liszt Faust Symphony. This one's like, think around like 1972 with, who is this? The BBC Northern Symphony Orchestra. And another work that can be because it's very long, and it can put you to sleep if it's not in capable hands. And again, with Horenstein, everything just makes sense. Everything, he's always telling the story so that every part of the work really does what it's supposed to do in terms of holding the listener's interest. So really, really well done. Thanks for watching. I want to wish you all a great day and happy listening.